Once again I found little in Jakarta to keep me there longer than was necessary to arrange my onward travel. My plan was to take a train west to Merak in western Java, from where I would catch a ferry to Panjang on the southern tip of Sumatra, and then a bus to Tanjung Karang. From there I would catch the overnight train to Palembang. I had wanted to travel the whole route overland, but heavy rains had made some of the roads impassable, so I booked a flight from Palembang to Padang. From Padang I would take a bus to Bukittinggi in the mountains, and from there I would have a 24-hour bus ride to Prapat, from where I could catch the ferry to Samosir Island on Lake Toba. The final part of the journey would involve a bus ride from Prapat to Medan in northern Sumatra. Here's the ferry that would take me from Merak to Panjang. The boat was crowded, and it was best to find a place on deck in the fresh air. On the way we passed the legendary island volcano of Krakatoa, which is actually west of Java and not east, as in the title of the film about it erupting. When I landed at Panjang, I caught a ride in a pickup truck to Tanjung Karang, where I was to catch the night train to Palembang. The train left at around 1 in the morning and arrived in Palembang 8 hours later. I spent most of that day catching up with some sleep and flew out the next morning. This was my view of the terrain that I would have been travelling through had the roads been open. And this is the view as we flew out over the coast to make our landing approach to Padang Airport. I found Padang much more friendly than Jakarta and Palembang, and wandered around freely taking pictures. At that time mopeds were becoming increasingly popular right across Southeast Asia, and Padang was no exception. Even the police were friendly and willing to pose for a picture. And of course the school children were just as cooperative. It was in Padang that I first came across the beautiful Batak style of architecture that I would see throughout the rest of my journey through Sumatra. The distinctive pointed roofs were said to repel evil spirits. The markets of Asia were always an interesting spectacle, and Padang market was no exception. With hardly any TV and little advertising, point of sale presentation was critical, and the traders made their goods as tempting as possible. It was always good fun bartering for something, even when it was already a bargain. Situated right on the coast, Padang was a busy port, and a stroll along the river provided some great photo opportunities. I caught this ferry across the river and climbed the hill on the other side, where I found this old Chinese cemetery. On leaving Padang, I took this horse-drawn taxi called a bendy to the bus station, rather than carry my pack in the very high heat and humidity. The horse didn't seem to mind the conditions. This was a typical Indonesian bus station, with buses run by competing private companies that all tried to get you as a passenger on their bus. The buses were fast and frequent, if somewhat uncomfortable and sometimes unreliable. It was a comparatively short distance to Bukit, but it took a while to get there as it was uphill into the mountains the whole way. Although only a couple of hours from Padang and nearer the equator, Bukit is a couple of thousand feet above sea level and enjoys a cooler and fresher climate all year round. It was fascinating just to wander around the town, and I found one or two interesting shops. There were, of course, the usual cafes and restaurants offering tasty treats for backpackers. There were also some fine examples of Batak houses, including this one that was serving as a museum. There was plenty to explore in the region around Bukit. An hour's walk up this gorge following the river took me to the village of Kota Gadang, where they boasted some fine craft shops. These two sisters ran a fine silver workshop. This was a matriarchal state where women were heads of families and businesses, although that didn't necessarily mean that the men did most of the work. This fine model house had been constructed by the girl's father. On leaving the village I came across this accident, but was pleased to find out that nobody had been injured. The vehicle was later pulled out of the ditch by an old World War II army truck. Kota Gadang was set amongst some fantastic scenery, including the inevitable rice paddies that were to be found all over Southeast Asia. This scene reminded me much of a John Constable landscape painting. I continued my exploration of the area around Bukit, sometimes using public transport, but mostly walking. Whenever I needed refreshment, I looked for a local tea house, the equivalent of an English pub. The men sat around drinking tea most of the day, while they left the women to get on with whatever needed doing. This old man was 84 and proudly posed for a picture with me.